A new CBS News documentary highlights one group working to bridge the divide between the Jewish community and Muslims. That challenge has only gotten a lot harder, as you might expect, since the October 7th, 2023 attack on Israel, when Hamas killed around 1,200 people and took another 250 hostage, and the subsequent 14 months of war that has killed tens of thousands of Palestinians. The documentary is called Finding Common Ground: Muslims and Jews, Bridging the Gap. It focuses on the Los Angeles-based nonprofit NewGround, which aims to foster conversations about these very difficult topics.
Los Angeles is home to one of the largest populations of Jews and Muslims in America.
It's one of the most diverse Jewish communities in the world.
You have Muslims that have been here for generations and Muslims who come from 54 different countries.
For nearly 2 decades, a group there has been trying to build bonds between these two communities.
My friends have been Jewish, my friends have been Christian. I didn't have any Muslim friends.
But the attack on October 7, 2023, and the aftermath are putting that mission to the test.
How is it safe for anyone if people are dehumanizing people?
This is the hardest it's ever been.
Magic 25!
This stuff is hope. Like, this is the work of
Yeah, we all got to have hope. Aziza Hasan is the executive director of NewGround, a Muslim-Jewish partnership for change. Andrea Hodos is NewGround's associate director. Good morning to you both. We're so glad you're here. This is so important to discuss, and many people are afraid. Aziza, I want to start with you, because your roots go back through Palestine, through your dad, 1948, when he was forced off the land. But you decided that you wanted to do this work. You wanted to help be part of the bridge. Why?
I feel like I was born on the bridge. I was born between 2 different worlds, born and raised in Jordan. My mom is from the Midwest and Christian. And I was always constantly translating and helping fill in the gaps in the knowledge and the understanding between these different worlds, and realizing that there was a really important role for people who are willing to do the translating and willing to speak up and remind each other, like, where we have value, yes, and where then the humanness that is in between.
That's the word I think we need to focus on, guys, is the humanness and humanity. Andrea, you're a devout Jewish woman, married to an Israeli man with a son who lives in Israel. And you wanted to be part of this. Why?
Well, so first of all, my husband lived in Israel for 12 years. I lived there for 2 years. When we met back here, we thought we were going to move back to Israel at that time. But America is our place.
Yeah. And
our son decided to move back. And when I got involved in NewGround, we didn't know that was going to happen. So the stakes have only gotten higher for me. But I came to NewGround because, as a religious Jew, I'm fascinated by the overlap and the connections between Jewishness and Judaism and Islam and Muslimness. I think that Muslims and Jews have a tremendous amount of work to do here in the U.S. together. Mm-hmm. I was worried about Islamophobia here in the States at that time. Not so worried about anti-Semitism at that time, and that has shifted over the years. I want to be part of something better, both here and there. I'm just committed to that.
So is the bridge that you were born on and that you're both working to create, is it between the Jewish and Muslim community, or between those communities and everyone else? Because, you know, they're actually really tiny overall compared to this vast American population, but everybody's got an opinion, right?
There is. There's multiple bridges in multiple directions all the time. And the challenge is that as Muslims and Jews, like in our city of Los Angeles, when there's a breakdown between us, it impacts other places, education, like being able to work in bullying in public schools. Like, these are things that impact greater the groups around us and between each other. And so there's a lot of really important work that needs to be done just to understand and to own our voices and to build people's capacity to be able to stay in the hard conversation.
So just pulling some buzzwords from this conversation alone, you mentioning that the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
Tony saying everybody has an opinion. Yeah. Things have shifted. The mood has changed. How do we have these very difficult conversations? First, let me ask, how do you two have these very difficult conversations? Then we'll move on to the rest of the world that has an outside opinion on this conflict.
That's a really important question. And I see people all the time leaning into the hard conversation, is jumping in feet first without breathing. And it sounds so elementary, but it's so important. And so,
what do you mean by breathing?
By breathing, I mean like literally taking in a deep inhale and holding it and then exhaling.
Okay.
So it's just a fraction of a moment that is so important to invest in. And when I'm about to have a hard conversation with Andrea or with anybody else for that matter, I make sure that I'm asking them and saying, I have something hard to say. Is this a good time? Are you ready to listen? And so it's
I like
making
that.
sure that they are also in a state where they can receive. And then if they're not, is to say, okay, when would be a good time? And then find that time together when we can both stay in our resilient zones where I know that I can ground ahead of time and then be ready to listen and really listen to what's really important to Andrea.
You know, guys, we keep hearing the phrase hard conversation. What is the hard conversation exactly that you want us to have here?
Well, we were talking about humanity,
Yes.
right? And being able to actually talk about what is scary for us, what makes us angry, what makes us not feel seen, is really important. So to get to that hard conversation where you're feeling that you have a fear, be ready to go there and actually like sit, take a breath, and talk about what is at stake for you.
It would also, I think, be helpful for people to see people as people. Many times we keep throwing out these numbers, thousands killed, hundreds injured. But behind all of those numbers, it always strikes me, these are real people behind these numbers.
Yes.
And for somebody, there's somebody's everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking, we've got to figure out a way to get that message.
Yeah.
Do you feel that too?
That is really at the heart of our work. So one of the things that's been hardest during this time for me is watching people not being able to see one another's pain. Not letting. We know from neuroscience that this is actually a very human experience. Pain will. This kind of over empathizing, we think empathy is a good thing, right? It really is, and it's important. But when you're empathizing too much with your own group, it puts up a block to the humanity, the humanness of the other people. So just knowing people and knowing their stories. So for me, I just heard that this past week, Chef Mahmoud Almadoun was killed. He had set up something called the Gaza Soup Kitchen, and he had created community for people who were in utter devastation. And he was hit while delivering food to produce to a hospital. And he was and he is no longer there to do that work. And they're picking up where he left off. But that's necessary work. And the day, like October 8th, I'm not usually on my phone. It was a holiday, and I'm not usually on my phone, but I'm watching my Facebook feed filled with the same picture over and over of Chaim Katzman, who turns out to be a friend of many of my friends, a colleague. He was a peace activist and an academic.
But the point you're making is I'm sorry, because we're running out of time, but it's these type of stories that we need to
know
hear.
these stories.
And also, while you acknowledge the
stories.
differences, it's also good to celebrate the differences too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to have you talk about that, Aziza.
I would be happy too if we had more time. But we don't.
Well, you're back for the 9, right? I mean,
It'll be on CBS Mornings Plus.
We'll pick it up there in the 9 o'clock hour.
Thank you, Tony. That's good. Aziza and Andrea, they're not done yet. The CBS Reports documentary Finding Common Ground, Muslims and Jews Bridging the Gap airs this Sunday at 9 p.m. on CBS News 24/7 and Paramount Plus, or you can stream it on demand.